Little boy shockingly declares, "I'm my mum's lawyer." Watch the incredible twist unfold. Ethan sat quietly in the corner of the bustling law office, eyes wide, heart racing as he watched the adults around him. His mother, Sarah, stood opposite the frosty attorney, Mr. Thompson, who towered over her like a storm cloud. "You think this is easy for me?" Sarah's voice broke, the weariness of her 2 jobs woven into her tone. The room was thick with tension. He wished more than anything to disappear, to be just a shadow that no one could see. As she clutched her papers, Ethan felt a surge of something unprecedented, a strange mix of fear and the flicker of hope. His voice broke through the charged silence, stark against the hum of indifference. "I'm my mum's lawyer." The words tumbled out before his mind could catch up. Laughter faded instantly. Eyes turned to him, surprised and surprised again, as if they were waking from a dream. His heart raced. He expected laughter, but he caught flashes of respect, disbelief. Was it even possible? Ethan felt the weight of all their gazes, a tide of energy washing over him. Sarah's expression shifted, surprise melting into a blend of admiration and a rekindled defiance. At that moment, her son was no longer just a boy, but a beacon shining away the shadows of doubt cast by Mr. Thompson. They were a small team, a united front, and for a breath-stealing second she held his gaze, an unspoken understanding pulsing between them. In that instant, everything changed. Later that evening, as they sat in their modest kitchen, the hum of the fridge a comforting background, she turned to Ethan with newfound resolve. "I'm signing you up for the debate club." The way she said it set off fireworks in his mind. This was a pathway to explore the world of words, to argue, to be seen. For the first time, she encouraged him to stand up and speak out. A whirlwind of confidence began to overturn the isolation where he had lingered too long. But the following week, storm clouds blew in. Sarah came home early, slumping into the kitchen chair with a defeated sigh. "I lost my job." With those words, the flickering light of promise dimmed in Ethan's heart. His mind spiraled around the implications. Rent was due, bills piled up, and he felt the tremors of anxiety race through their modest home. The excitement of debate became overshadowed by worry. On a warm afternoon, amid the chaos of arguments swirling in his mind, he found himself stepping onto the debate stage, eyes wide, looking out at a crowd, but mainly fixating on one figure, Mr. Thompson. What was he even doing here? Everything was blurring. The lines between boy and advocate twisted tight. And then it hit him hard. To challenge Mr. Thompson meant risking vulnerability, potentially more rejection. "What about my mom's hard work?" Ethan's own voice echoed across the room. The moment hung in the air, dense with uncertainty, and his heart raced. He felt an awakening of emotions, fear, hope, resentment, all battling for dominance. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." And then Mr. Thompson, with the same smirk that had haunted Sarah, retorted, "And what would a child know about the law?" The harshness of his voice cut through Ethan's moment of clarity, and doubts crushed down upon him like a heavy weight. Was he truly ready to fight, to stand against this adult world, filled with adult complexities? The room buzzed, threads of tension weaving tighter as he felt the finality of the moment closing in. Would he be drowned by the magnitude of reality, or rise to lift his mother's struggle into the light? As the stakes climbed ever higher, Ethan stood frozen, torn between the weight of expectations and the flicker of determination igniting within. This was his moment. Would he seize it, or let the world swallow him whole? Time seemed to stretch infinitely as Ethan stood there, anchored to the stage by uncertainty. The echo of Mr. Thompson's scornful words rattled in his mind like a bell tolling for the vanishing hope within him. What would his mother think? Would she be disappointed that her moment of valor had been extinguished by her own son's silence? As the gaze of the audience felt like a spotlight burning on his skin, Ethan wrestled with the option to retreat or move forward. He could feel his mother's presence anchoring him, a lifeline that tugged at the corners of his consciousness, whispering encouragement despite the accumulated weight of fear. Somewhere deep inside him, a fragile seed of resolve began to sprout, a willingness to confront the very man who had cast such a long shadow over their lives. "Everything I know about the law," he started hesitantly, each word an anchor to shield him against the storm of doubt within. "I know from watching my mum. She's fought every day, working late into the night, sacrificing so I can have a chance at something better." The words flowed against the grain of his prior timid existence, a newfound confidence emerging, rooted deeply in love and necessity. The crowd reacted. Some nodded, expressions shifting from disbelief to curiosity. Ethan grounded himself, seeking solace in the familiar rhythm of speaking. He could feel the momentum leading him, like a current guiding him to shore. And if every child could see the strength of a parent working hard for their family, maybe they would understand that even children can have a role in this fight. Mr. Thompson's face morphed from contempt to irritation, the facade of indifference shrouded in incredulity. It was the first hint of fragility Ethan had seen from the imposing attorney. A flicker of triumph warmed him, but it also lit a fire of responsibility. He had to carry this moment with integrity. Ethan pressed on, emboldened by the subtle shift. "You might think I don't know what it means to be determined, but I do. I see it in her every day." Each phrase felt like a brushstroke painting his narrative, bringing his emotions into sharp focus against the blurred outlines of adult complexities. "I may be young, but that doesn't mean I lack a voice." The growing energy in the room sparked a visceral reaction from those who had gathered. A few clapped softly, more joined in, and slowly a ripple of support echoed back to him. He had begun to challenge not just Thompson, but the very foundations that defined who could speak and what voice mattered. As his confidence surged, Ethan turned his gaze to the audience and seized the moment. "I'm fighting not only for my mum, but for every kid who believes they don't have a say." Each word amplified the tremors of doubt in his chest into undeniable thunder. He couldn't turn back. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet it beckoned with a sweet promise of strength. After what felt like an eternity, he fell silent, breathless, and exposed. The applause that spilled forth felt surreal, as if the world was seeing him in a light he hadn't dared to imagine. With trembling hands, he acknowledged the crowd, their perceptions shifting, futures opening. But just as a fragile sense of victory enveloped him, Mr. Thompson's voice sliced through the exhilaration. "You think this is a game? You better understand the stakes." His tone was laced with simmering menace, each word a calculated threat against Ethan's newfound voice. A shadow fell over the stage as doubt crept back in. Ethan felt the wick of courage dim slightly, aware that the path he'd just embarked upon might come with unforeseen peril. Did he truly know the stakes he was facing? As he turned to look for reassurance in his mother's eyes, the flicker of uncertainty returned, like a familiar spectre. Would he truly have the strength to follow through on this path? Or was he set to ignite a battle far beyond his readiness? The moment of truth loomed over him, heavy with anticipation, begging the question, would Ethan become the voice of change he wanted to be, or would fear tether him back to silence? Ethan's heart thundered in his chest, each beat a reminder of the high stakes he had just brushed against. His eyes flitted between the expectant faces in the audience and the menacing glare of Mr. Thompson, whose presence felt like an oppressive weight pressing down on him. The applause that had once ignited a fire within him now felt like distant echoes, fading into the background of his uncertainty. He stepped back, almost instinctively wanting to retreat to safety, but a deeper urge compelled him to stand firm. It was one thing to voice his thoughts, but the reality of what lay ahead began to settle in a sobering manner. Mr. Thompson's challenge rang in his ears. Did he truly know what it meant to fight? Did he understand the complicated world of legal machinations that often twisted intentions into disruptions? There was no turning back. The realization weighed heavily on him, yet the resolve from earlier flickered like a candle stubbornly enduring the gusts of doubt. Ethan drew a deep breath, seeking the calm amidst the storm raging within. He could do this. He had to do this. With a slight nod to his mother, who now wore a blend of pride and apprehension on her face, he refocused on the task at hand. His voice once more echoed out across the space, steadying as confidence reclaimed its hold. "This isn't just about me or my mom," he stated, feeling the momentum return with each word. "This is about anyone who thinks they don't have the right to speak. I understand that not everybody's voice is heard, but it's past time we change that. I know I'm young, but that doesn't matter. You don't have to be old to fight." As the words flowed, Ethan felt the audience shift. There was a subtle collective intake of breath, as if they too were digesting the truth behind his proclamation. He wasn't fighting just for validation. He was confronting a systemic issue that limited voices like his, voices that needed to be amplified, not muffled. But doubt slipped in again as Ethan continued. He saw the doubt on Mr. Thompson's face shift back towards scorn, a flash of contempt dancing in his eyes. Was he truly capable of taking on this titan of law? The attorney had years of experience and power. How could he, a boy with just a few speeches to his name, take such a stance? Yet Ethan couldn't afford to entertain that fear. He had to focus on what he could do. "I need help," he admitted, his tone softening. "But every person in this room can help amplify a voice that believes they deserve to be heard. We cannot let fear strip away our identities." Ethan locked eyes with people among the audience. He allowed his vulnerability to surface, the softness of his voice betraying the intensity of his resolve. "You might all be wondering why a boy who knows so little about law or the world is standing here. I wonder too. But I do know my mother has taught me to fight for what is right and stand for what we believe in. And if I'm to trust anything, I can trust her strength. So let's use that strength together." A murmur of transformation rippled through the crowd, a movement that unfurled and unfettered itself from the constraints of doubt. The applause swelled again, but this time it felt different, underpinned by an urgency. An acknowledgement that Ethan's words resonated beyond the surface. Yet that flicker of victory was interrupted when Mr. Thompson stepped forward, the authoritative tone shrouded in a forced calm. "I commend your bravery, young man, but bravery doesn't equate to wisdom. You may have courage, yet do you realize the kind of challenges you're about to enter?" Ethan felt his internal compass swing with uncertainty, a demand to defend both his stance and the journey ahead. "Those challenges need to be faced, or nothing changes," he shot back, realizing this encounter was more than just a battle. It was a defining moment on a road he had not yet fully explored. The moment hung heavy in the air, the tension coiling tighter as realization dawned upon him. He wasn't just speaking to the audience, he was setting the groundwork for the challenges ahead. "The time has come for me to truly be my mother's lawyer," Ethan said with newfound conviction, his voice echoing the weight of his resolve. A ripple of anticipation swept through the room as a palpable shift began, mingling with Ethan's urgency to rise with courage. yet it was tinged with fear of the unknown. He turned his attention back to Mr. Thompson, now a beacon of confrontation and conflict. What if he hadn't grasped the depth of this fight? What if the battle was much larger than a single voice could handle? Would his determination hold up against the harsh realities waiting to confront him next? The inevitable tension of the undiscovered path lay ahead. The applause hung in the air like smoke, slowly dissipating as Ethan watched the audience's faces blur into a haze of anticipation and uncertainty. Each clap echoed louder than the last, but beneath that sound lay an undercurrent of disbelief. Could a boy so young really take on such a formidable presence as Mr. Thompson? Ethan squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of an unexpected responsibility. His mother had not just raised him, she had instilled a sense of justice that now bubbled within him like an unquenchable flame. This desire to fight felt almost tangible, as if it had taken root in his very bones. He had declared his intent, yet doubt taunted him. It wasn't enough to speak. He had to find a way to act. What could he do now? Facing off against the established hierarchy that Mr. Thompson represented was daunting. Ethan knew that knowledge was the key, and he had little of it. The law wasn't just a battleground of words. It was filled with intricate rules and strategies that could defeat even the most valiant of intentions. He had to learn. He had to grow. As he stepped down from the makeshift podium, his mind raced with questions. How did one prepare for such a challenge? Ethan decided to seek out information. A public library nearby housed tomes filled with legal theory and case studies. Perhaps there he could find insights, frameworks to build his understanding. His mother had always told him that knowledge eases fear. He needed to embody that belief, to step beyond mere declarations and into proficient advocacy. He needed to absorb the wisdom from those who had walked this path before him. That evening he made a plan. He'd study the law, understand the nuances of his mother's case, and learn the lingo. He holed himself up in his room, surrounded by piles of legal texts, articles, and online resources. The hours blurred into a tapestry of pages and highlighters, the familiar scent of ink blending with the sharp aroma of his determination. Each new concept peeled away layers of his ignorance, exposing both the complexity of law and the simple humanity at its core. He understood the motion and breadth of litigation, how every phrase could sway a jury, every statement could lead to victory or defeat. But even with growing clarity came tension, as he recognized the precarious stakes involved in every strategic choice. As days passed, Ethan felt the sharpness of his knowledge fill the spaces that once echoed with doubt. Home reflected his transformation, his room now a chaotic reminder of his new mission, the desk littered with notes and colorful sticky notes populated with legal phrases he struggled to master. Yet with knowledge came a realization grounded in humility. Legal battles weren't just about facts and figures. They were about empathy, about understanding the very human experiences behind every case. Each time he reviewed his mother's story, he felt her struggle deepen his resolve, morphing this battle into a personal crusade. One afternoon, while combing through her case files, Ethan felt a bolt of inspiration strike. Was there a way to galvanize support? What if he could share what he had unearthed? He began drafting a document that outlined his understanding of her situation. All the legal context he had now come to grasp. He recognized the power of community and how storytelling could intertwine with law. But as he prepared to circulate his findings, doubt seeped back in. Would anyone listen? Would the knowledge he gained be enough? Faces of those who had scoffed at his declaration haunted him. This internal struggle wasn't just about advocacy. It was about his own journey of self-belief. The tension of anticipation escalated as he formatted his document, carefully weighing each word. Eyes darted between the text and his own reflection, the pressure of unveiling his thoughts growing heavy. Would this be his moment of truth? This felt bigger than a simple legal strategy. It carried the weight of vulnerability, the chance to impact not just his mother's fate, but, perhaps, the others around him. Yet as he prepared to share his work, a chilling thought gnawed at him. What if he was unprepared? What if he opened himself to the very critiques he feared? The moment of truth he longed for loomed ahead, filled with both promise and growing dread as he contemplated what might come next. Would he seek validation or forge ahead undeterred, exposing his journey for all to see? In the fragile balance between hope and anxiety, the next step beckoned, a chance to ignite the fight, but with it, an opportunity to face his deepest fears echoed in the shadows of his ambition. Ethan sat at his cluttered desk, the document still open on his screen, blinking like a lighthouse amidst a storm of doubt. The room was dimly lit, shadows creeping around him, emphasizing the weight of what lay ahead. He could almost hear the disapproval. What if he fumbled his words? What if he appeared foolish? There was a difference between studying the law and advocating for it, a chasm so wide it felt insurmountable. With a sudden surge of determination, he steeled himself. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the fundamental truth he had uncovered. This battle was not solely about legal jargon, but emotions and stories. His mother faced a reality that many could relate to, a fight for fairness and justice. A fire ignited within him once more as he recalled the long nights she had labored through, the sacrifices she had made for their family. This wasn't just a case. It was a narrative intertwined with love, pain, and relentless strength. He took a moment to jot down a list of potential supporters. He thought of friends, neighbors, teachers, people who had shown kindness in different forms. What if their voices could amplify his own? Ethan's instinct was to reach out, to build a network of understanding around his mother's predicament. He envisioned sharing the document not just as a proposition, but as an invitation to empathize, a call to action infused with emotion and truth. As he clicked through his contacts, he hesitated at each name. A voice inside his head nagged him, reminding him of past failures, of moments he had squawked his ambitions too loudly, only to be met with mockery. Was he prepared to endure criticism from acquaintances or even friends? Question after question and doubt upon doubt rose, threatening to drown him in insecurity. But then he remembered his mother's unwavering belief in him. It whispered an invitation to rise above his fear. With every pressing thought of reluctance, he found a countering affirmation of purpose. He envisioned the support he could cultivate, the words he so carefully crafted pouring out into the world. This was his movement. He had the chance to define it on his own terms. Taking the leap, he sent the document to a handful of trusted individuals. A rush of apprehension flooded through him as he hit send, the action marking a point of no return. The instant the button clicked, he was aware of a shift within, the thrill of stepping forward, battling the urge to retreat into the shadows of his room. Each heartbeat thumped louder in his ears, resonating with both anxiety and exhilaration. What if they responded positively? What if they laughed? It could be a disaster or the foundation of something significant. As he paced the floor, he ruminated on the dichotomy between triumph and failure, stretching across his mind like an unwieldy balance beam, each step more precarious than the last. A response came quickly from Mrs. Jennings, his history teacher. "Ethan, this looks fantastic. I'd love to help further. Let's discuss at school tomorrow." Hope ignited within him, momentarily staving off the anxiety. Perhaps this could be the beginning of something constructive. But even as he felt uplifted by her support, the looming enormity of challenging Mr. Thompson left a tight knot in his stomach. That monster of insecurity crept back, whispering reminders of the stakes involved. With relevance and urgency, he understood. The real test would come when he had to confront not only the legal intricacies, but the very force of Mr. Thompson's influence in the community. The promise of tomorrow now held the weight of a dual-edged sword. Would he be able to bridge the gap between knowledge and advocacy when it counted the most? Ethan felt the tides of change positioned around him, pulsating with the weight of both fear and burgeoning resolve. As he turned off the light and settled into bed, anticipation stitched itself to worry. The next day, he would face not only his classmates and their perceptions, but also the undeniable reality of who he might become in pursuit of justice for his mother. Would he harness the courage necessary to rise as her advocate, or would doubt thwart him again? Only the dawn could reveal the path ahead, a moment waiting to unfold right before him. Ethan woke to the Monday sun, filtering through his curtains, casting a soft glow across his room. Yet the light did little to dispel the shadows of anxiety hanging over him. He lay still for a moment, the weight of reality pressing down on his chest. Today was the day he would confront his fears and step into his role as an advocate for his mother. The thought ignited both determination and a jolt of panic within him. Rising from his bed, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. Who was he trying to be? A lawyer in an oversized suit or a son willing to fight for justice? It was a defining moment. As he dressed, he rehearsed lines in his head, trying to perfect not only what he would say, but how he would say it. Each phrase felt like a promise to himself and to his mother. A promise not to waver under the scrutiny of his peers or the looming presence of Mr. Thompson. At school, the atmosphere buzzed with the mundane chatter of students sharing weekend stories. Each laugh and sigh of relief at the start of a new week synced with the pounding of his heart. He made his way to the cafeteria, where Mrs. Jennings had arranged to meet him. Her warm smile welcomed him as he approached, but her attentive gaze also weighed heavy with expectation. "Ethan, I'm really proud of you," she said, motioning for him to sit. "This takes tremendous courage. Have you thought about how you want to frame your argument?" He nodded, gripping his lunch tray as if it were a lifeline. "I want to highlight how unfair this situation is for my mum and all those like her. I thought I could share some examples." "Excellent start. Don't forget to also point out their human stories. That's what will resonate with others," she advised, leaning in closer. The conversation flowed, igniting further ideas within him. He envisioned a structure, angry yet heartfelt words flowing like a river where his mother's sacrifices formed the banks, guiding his thoughts. He felt the stir of confidence rise gradually, bolstered by the support he was receiving. Mrs. Jennings' encouragement fed him, igniting something he thought was lost, his belief in the power of his voice. As the lunch bell rang, Ethan felt a tug of excitement mixed with dread. It was time for him to share his document with the broader class, an audience filled with eyes that could judge, criticize, or endorse him. With Mrs. Jennings' reassuring presence fading behind him, he walked into the classroom, where the air vibrated with palpable tension. There he stood at the front, facing a sea of peers. He took a deep breath and began reading, projecting his voice with careful precision. Each word felt like a stepping stone, leading him to the culmination of his fight. But as he progressed, doubt seeped in, whispering unknown threats and reminding him of his vulnerabilities. Halfway through he paused. Anxiety gripped him as he scanned the faces before him. Some looked intrigued, while others whispered amongst themselves. Would they perceive his passion as naivety? Was he exposing himself to ridicule? But then he saw a familiar face, his mother's neighbor, a woman whose quiet nod of encouragement grounded him. Fueled by that visual, he pressed on, pouring his heart into the narrative, illustrating the relentless nature of their struggle. And then, unexpectedly, Mr. Thompson entered the room. His presence drowned out the room's excitement, casting a shadow over Ethan's presentation. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the man's steely gaze fixed on him. The disruption rattled his concentration, the crowd's chatter turning into an echo as an uneasy silence descended. The time had come to face not just the skepticism of his peers, but the very embodiment of the challenge he sought to rise against. Would he finish strong or falter under the weight of scrutiny? Every fiber of his being screamed at him to rush through and retreat, yet something in him stirred, an innate resilience that propelled him forward. Ethan gathered his courage, ready to deliver the most pivotal moment to his audience when the tension intertwined with the echoes of his internal war. All that was left was to see if his words would echo back support or fall prey to ridicule. What would happen next? He felt an unfamiliar sense of agency wash over him as he stood at the edge of a precipice, forced to confront everything he had been preparing for. Would he make the jump, or would he retreat in fear? The answer loomed over him, obscured by uncertainty, waiting to be unearthed by the risks he was willing to take. The silence in the room stretched like a taut wire, vibrating with the weight of expectation. Ethan felt the eyeballs of his classmates pinning him to the floor, while Mr. Thompson's stare seemed to cut even deeper. It felt impossible to carry on, but his mother and all she had sacrificed surged to the forefront of his mind, pushing past the fear. Swallowing hard, Ethan clenched his fists to steady himself. "Mr. Thompson," he started. The name felt heavy on his tongue. "This isn't just about the statistics. It's about real lives changed by decisions made in offices far removed from their struggles." He glanced briefly at his classmates, whose eyes flickered with curiosity. Ethan powered through, recalling their late-night conversations, his mother's tired eyes, and the stories of those who had faced similar battles. An adrenaline rush coursed through him, transforming his earlier trepidation into fervor. What we're dealing with isn't merely financial, it's about dignity, about human rights. Seeing his classmates' expressions shift, he dared to take another step forward. As he described the emotional toll of bureaucratic red tape, his own heart began to mend. The shaky lines from earlier transformed into steady declarations. Instead of worrying what they might think, he instinctively knew the audience was growing receptive. Yet Mr. Thompson, affronted by Ethan's words, cut in, asserting authority. "Ethan, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, let's not confuse passion with understanding of the legal process. Perhaps this isn't the right forum for your views." Before the man could finish, Ethan felt something snap inside him, a resolve forged by the struggles he had witnessed at home. "With all due respect, sir," he halted the interruption, the defiance surprising even himself. "You might not know what it's like to feel helpless when you and your family are caught in a system that doesn't care." Silence. A pin could drop, and Ethan could hear the collective intake of breath. The eyes of his classmates shifted between him and Mr. Thompson as curiosity and apprehension cloaked the room. But he wasn't finished. "Every time my mum has had to fight for a sick day or to explain why bills stack up with no end in sight, it's not just numbers on a page. It's her life. It's my life. It's our reality." His voice cracked slightly, not out of weakness, but from the depth of feeling behind his words, something that was undeniably real. Internally, the walls around his fear began to crumble. He was not the naive boy, cowering before a giant. He was a son, a champion ready to fight for what's right. "I'm not just up here to talk. I'm here to advocate, to push for change, and I'm asking you all to listen to not just me, but others facing the same issues." For a moment, he sensed an undeniable shift in the room. Students leaned forward, intent on his words. Even Mr. Thompson looked humanized, caught off guard by the passionate resolve emanating from this seemingly simple boy. In that instant, Ethan discovered the transformative power of his voice. In revealing himself, he engaged others in a way he never thought possible. Just as he was beginning to feel the confidence anchor him, his moment of clarity was interrupted. Mr. Thompson responded, irritation flaring like a sudden storm. "You may feel passionate, Ethan, but you lack experience in handling real cases." That comment stung, burrowing into Ethan's thoughts, igniting a conflict he hadn't anticipated. Could he be experienced enough to advocate not just for himself, but for the issues raised? Staring defiantly at the man who represented the very system he was fighting against, Ethan felt his heart race. But what if I'm not just a kid trying to play lawyer? What if I'm the voice that reminds us we must do better? An uncomfortable silence followed. The potential for growth lay palpable in the atmosphere, still and charged. Ethan stood transformed, no longer just a frightened son, but an advocate for truth and dignity. Caught up in the rising tide of emotions, he didn't overthink the next step. "I need your support, everyone," he urged his classmates. "If we can harness our voices now, we can stand up for change." As he awaited their response, uncertainty turned into a desperate hope. Would they rally behind him and respond with empathy, or would they choose to uphold the status quo? The moment of truth hovered in the air, thick with tension. It would determine not just Ethan's journey, but also the collective conscience of his peer group. Would his words catalyze their growth or send him crashing down? And as the classroom seemed to breathe in unison, he felt a shift in the air, a crack in the wall that could open the door to possibilities yet unimagined. A palpable energy thrummed in the classroom, tangible as electricity, as Ethan watched the subtle shifts among his peers. Some nodded, an instinctive agreement forming as they absorbed his words. Others, with furrowed brows, seemed to wrestle with a burgeoning discomfort at the implications he presented. Each second felt like an eternity, but the realization dawned on him. He had initiated a dialogue. He stepped further into the room, feeling the invisible tether connecting him to his classmates, a collective curiosity igniting their imaginations. "Ethan," came a voice from the back. It was Clara, a classmate known for her sharp intellect and penchant for questioning authority. "You're really pushing against Mr. Thompson here. How do you plan to get around the bureaucracy you're talking about?" Her tone was probing but not antagonistic. It was a challenge rather than an attack, a call for clarity. He felt a swelling of gratitude for her inquiry, an acknowledgement that solidified his transformational moment. Instead of retreating behind vague notions, Ethan contemplated his answer. "We start by educating ourselves," he asserted, voice steady despite the pulse of doubt thrumming through him. "This isn't just my story, it's a shared narrative, and learning how the system works will help us identify where we can make our influences felt." The class murmured softly, the gears of thought visibly turning. He sensed their willingness to dig deeper, to not merely accept the status quo. This breathed new life into his initiative, emboldening Ethan to take the plunge. "What about researching local advocacy groups or even legal workshops? We could engage with professionals who help navigate these systems," he pressed, his confidence building. "Each of us could play a role." Another voice chimed in. "What if we held discussions outside this class, not just about one person's struggle, but the struggles of everyone?" It was Jonah, typically quiet, yet tonight he injected his hope into the conversation, his perspective flipping a switch in the room. Ethan felt his resolve solidify, pushing away lingering uncertainties. It was easy to doubt his capability against the systems at play, but hearing their voices ignited an unfamiliar strength within him. "Exactly. We can form a study group. We can find mentors. We can turn information into action," he proclaimed, envisioning what it would feel like to walk among those who understood the struggle and supported the fight. "It's not about knowing all the answers. It's about discovering the questions we should be asking." As he spoke, the tension in his chest eased into a steady rhythm. He could see it, his classmates leaning in, captivated. They weren't just passive observers anymore. The seed of collective ambition had been planted. Mr. Thompson watched, visibly torn between authority and the undeniable atmosphere that Ethan had cultivated. The battle lines were being drawn, not simply in resistance, but through meaningful assembly. Yet, like a distant storm cloud, the challenge remained. Obstacles were inevitable. But how will we combat the apathy, the disinterest of those who don't believe in change? Clara posited. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully on Ethan. Her question dug deep, a stark reminder of the societal inertia that threatened to dampen their drive. Just as he prepared to muster a response, the door creaked open. In stormed Ashley, one of the most popular girls in school, her presence instantly shifting the dynamics. "What's all this about? You're making it sound like we can actually change something," she remarked, skepticism veiled under masked curiosity. Ethan caught her gaze, unwilling to back down. "We can," he said firmly, "if we start talking about it, if we make our voices heard." Ashley raised an eyebrow, intrigued, yet knowingly skeptical. "That sounds nice, Ethan, but do you really think a few high school meetings will change anything?" Determination sparked once more inside of him. "It's not just about meetings, it's about starting a conversation." A quiet resolve anchored his words. The fire ignited. He realized that getting them involved was not merely about advocating for change, but embodying it. Ethan's heart raced. Were they at the precipice of something significant? He had opened a dialogue, yet the tension still weighed heavily. Would they take the leap alongside him, or would his journey toward meaningful advocacy falter before it ever truly began? As anticipation hung in the air, he inhaled deeply, ready to challenge Ashley's doubt and rally his classmates once more, knowing that this was just the beginning of a larger battle he was about to face. The room seemed to vibrate with newfound energy, and with it an external shift. What had begun as a conversation, sparked by his voice, now loomed as a potential movement. All hinged on how they chose to respond next. The moment was rife with possibility, but would they seize it? Ethan's instincts hummed with urgency as he prepared for the responses yet to come, feeling the weight of not just their decisions but his own personal ethos hanging in the balance. The time had come for clarity. The choice was now his to influence. Ethan locked eyes with Ashley, feeling the pressure of the moment as he had never felt before. The weight of expectations hung in the air, taunting him to rise to the occasion, while an internal voice threatened to drown him in self-doubt. He wasn't just advocating for change, he was the catalyst for this shift, and the thought both thrilled and frightened him. "Tell me," he urged Ashley, seizing her attention, "what if you could make a difference, not just for us, but for anyone struggling under this system? What if those small conversations can ripple out? I believe that's how it all starts." Ashley crossed her arms, the skepticism still apparent in her stance, but a flicker of genuine curiosity sparked behind her sharp gaze. "But what's it really going to accomplish? Will anyone even listen to us?" "Why not?" Ethan shot back, his tone sharpening with urgency. "Think about the people we encounter every day, those who feel unheard or unseen. What if we put a spotlight on those stories, amplify their voices through our own?" He wasn't merely flinging ideas, he was testing the very foundation of his convictions. If he claimed to rally people, he needed to steel his resolve. What if others didn't find it worth the effort? The thought gnawed at him like an irritating itch, yet he pushed back against it, telling himself that change felt uncomfortable because it was inherently transformative. He paced the room, feeling energized by Clara and Jonah's nods of understanding. "We'll start small, a blog maybe, a space where we share experiences and invite others to contribute. We can create a community of voices. It begins with us." Classmates murmured among themselves, the tension bending, shifting. Some looked eager, while others remained skeptical. Undeterred, Ethan felt a silent plea rise up. He had gone too far to turn back now. But was he truly equipped? "Think about this," he continued, trying to maintain momentum. "Every story we share, every voice we uplift, builds a bridge to forming our community. We're not just name-calling bureaucracy, we're making it personal, and personal stories resonate." He saw Ashley shifting on her feet. "What real power do we hold? We're just high schoolers." That's exactly it, he interjected, fueled by a sudden clarity. We are people in this system, the very heartbeat of it. We're not powerless. If everyone felt we held no power to change anything, there would be no accountability anywhere. Our age doesn't define our ability to create thoughtful change. Her forehead furrowed, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered on her face. But how do we even start? Ethan could feel the electric charge of energy gathering in the room once more, a collective exhale of anticipation. Let's set a date for our first meeting. Anyone who wants to join is welcome, and we'll task ourselves with gathering stories. We don't need fancy tools, just a platform to share. I will do the research to see what's out there, but the real work is us engaging. His pulse quickened with each phrase, each word, feeling as though he was building something essential. Would this collective effort be enough to combat the looming apprehensions he'd sensed in the room just moments ago? As classmates began speaking up with interest, offering to help with logistics, Ethan's heart swelled with affirmation. Each suggestion further fueled a wave of bravery within him. The reminder that meaningful changes took persistent effort, the kind he was willing to knead into the fabric of their days, no matter how daunting, emerged stronger than before. But in the back of his mind lurked a question. Was he truly ready to take on the pushback that would inevitably come once they stepped out of this classroom? What challenges awaited him outside as others chose disengagement over conversation? Just then the bell rang, slicing through the air. It jolted Ethan back to the present, accountability gripping him tighter. As his classmates began to pack their bags and drift away, it became clear there was no turning back. This was neither a mere discussion nor a fleeting moment. It was the beginning of a new chapter. "Meet me after school to hammer out details," he called out. Everyone paused, some looking back, caught in the gravitational pull of Ethan's determination. But he felt a shiver of uncertainty, laced with anticipation. Was this the foundation of something greater, or would he find himself isolated in his vision? With his heart racing, Ethan stood at the threshold of his aspirations, the lingering taste of courage sweetening the air around him. Yet another thought gnawed. If he was going to truly lead this, he needed to confront more than just apathy. He needed to face the deeper, more profound fears that bound him. The next opportunity loomed, bringing with it whispers of change and tension. Would he prove to be the spark that ignited not just his own evolution, but that of his peers? Ethan stood outside the school, anxiety coursing through him as the sunlight began its descent. Today marked the birth of something significant, a movement sparked not just by his words, but also by the collective determination of his peers. Yet, lingering doubts haunted him. Would they rally together, or would his ambitions dissolve in the face of reality? As the other students filtered out, he could see Clara, Jonah, and even Ashley approaching, a semblance of camaraderie forming. "Let's get started," Clara said, a spark of conviction shining in her eyes. Instantly, Ethan felt welcomed into this burgeoning alliance, the shared purpose evident in each nod and exchanged glance. Their first brainstorming session unfolded in the library, a sanctuary filled with knowledge and stories waiting to be told. Ethan took the lead, outlining the idea of creating a blog where they would share their narratives, both their insights and the challenges they had faced. Hope flashed in the eyes of those around him, transforming the room into a crucible of creativity. As their ideas began to flow, Ethan realized that their collaborative spirit infused him with newfound strength. Each suggestion built upon the last, evolving into a tapestry reflective of their shared experiences. Clara proposed interviewing local advocates, while Jonah suggested they utilize social media to reach a broader audience. The conversation unfolded like a symphony, harmonizing their ambitions with a rhythm of hope. Ethan marveled at the transformations happening before him. No longer did he feel like a solitary voice. Rather, he was part of a chorus, each member equipped with a unique melody, yet united in purpose. The initial fear that gripped him transformed into excitement, propelling him towards a tangible goal. Reflecting on his journey, Ethan recognized that embracing vulnerability had forged stronger connections and led them towards actionable outcomes. He realized that harnessing their diverse strengths would amplify their impact. They were no longer advocacy novices. They were pioneers, crafting a path toward change. The momentum culminated into a plan. With excitement bubbling beneath the surface, Ethan outlined their strategy. They would conduct interviews, publish their stories, and compile them into an accessible online platform. A sense of celebration enveloped them, the collective dream turning into a tangible reality. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Armed with purpose, they researched local advocates and immersed themselves in interviews, weaving the narratives through empathy and compassion. The stories they captured breathed life into their mission, each one a thread connecting their community. Yet amidst the fervor, Ethan still faced his ultimate challenge, confronting Mr. Thompson. The looming presence of the attorney who represented the obstacles against them cast a long shadow. Ethan needed assurance that his demands for change would remain unbroken. As the day arrived for them to present their findings, Ethan felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. In the packed school auditorium, he took the stage with his classmates as a spirited energy filled the air, every student ready to uplift not only their cause, but the journey they had undertaken together. In his heart, Ethan understood that eloquence alone would not sway Mr. Thompson. He needed to illustrate that they carried vital truths alongside their ambitions. He needed to transform and channel the struggle of his mother and others like her into a mission beyond reproach. Taking a deep breath, Ethan opened the floor to his peers, inviting them to share their experiences while he framed the overarching narrative. Each voice added weight, cascading through the room as if summoning empathy and urgency. As Ethan listened, a profound sense of pride washed over him. He watched as Ashley, once skeptical but now resolutely engaged, spoke about the stories they'd gathered, the voices they had included that went unrecognized. Clara shared the raw, authentic experiences that punctuated their journey. Each contribution echoed an evolution not merely of individual voices, but of a united collective consciousness. And then, in the back, Mr. Thompson shifted in his seat. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine, but as the stories unfolded, an undeniable truth took shape. They weren't just students. This was a movement grounded in love and the essence of what it meant to advocate. Finishing up, Ethan turned his gaze toward the audience, his confidence solidifying. "We are asking for your support, not just to uplift our voices, but to honor the stories of those who have fought silently. Real change requires courage. It requires empathy." He paused, letting the words sink in. What they had accomplished together had morphed into a narrative of resilience. As he finished speaking, applause erupted, filling the room with tangible validation. Ethan locked eyes with Mr. Thompson, who appeared both taken aback and thoughtful. The attorney stood, the air hummed with anticipation. Would he dismiss their efforts, or would he recognize their worth? "I commend the passion displayed here," Mr. Thompson began, the respect clear in his tone. "But know that the legal world operates on more than heart. You'll face more complexities than you realize." Ethan took a step forward, bolstered with a conviction he hadn't felt before. "And we are ready to face them. Knowledge will guide us, but our stories will fuel our fire. This is just the beginning." The applause that followed was different. On this occasion, it was an acknowledgement of resilience, an embrace of budding change. As the crowd dispersed, Ethan felt the strength of every story resonate within him. He understood the weight of responsibility they had now assumed. Together, they had elevated their voices and breached a system. For the first time, he felt an unmistakable sense of confidence, a recognition that each individual voice held merit, that he had become not only his mother's lawyer, but an advocate for justice. Ethan had transformed from a timid boy into a catalyst for change, armed with courage, wisdom, and a commitment to uplift every unheard story. Today was not simply a victory. It was a stepping stone towards an empowered future. As he walked out, a sense of agency settled over him. Clear and compelling, he was reclaiming the narrative that had been waiting to be told. Now it's your turn to embark on your journey. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that uplift us all. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and make these transformative narratives reach more seekers of hope. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion, because every voice matters. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire true change.